Hello! On this channel, we talk about independent spirituality and folk magic for free spirits. My name is Aster, and in today's video, I am going to share some tips and tricks for people who are starting out with their magical practice, and also for people who are maybe in the broom closet and how can you deal with that. Of course, that everything that I'm gonna say in this video comes from my personal experience and my personal background, so take everything as just advice. It is just advice. See what makes sense for you, what you could actually apply in your reality, and take it from there, okay? Magic has been part of my family since generations, and I think I know a thing or two that I can share with others. Now, today's video is going to be divided into 3 parts. Tips for closeted witches, tips for beginners, and some extra discussions in the end about grimoires and altars. So make sure to stick around all the way to the end, okay? There's gonna be a lot of information in this video, and you don't want to miss out on that. So let's dive right in. The first thing that I would advise you do if you are just starting out, you are still living with your parents and everything, ask yourself why you want to become a witch. Why? What is the motivation behind it? If you just want to look cool to other people, or maybe you think that the witchy content creators are swimming in money, well, think again, girlfriend. Motivation is what moves the world. And in my case, magic was a pathway to reconnecting with myself and finding my personal power again. If you just want to put up a show to other people, chances are that you're not gonna stick around for long with your practice, because being a witch involves a lot of studying. It involves a lot of trial and error. A witchcraft practice does not look pretty. It doesn't look Instagrammable. And it's not about that. Anyway, let's dive into the tips for the closeted witches. I have my notes here, so please bear with me while I am taking a look at it. The first thing I would advise you do is to get plants. Why? Because plants, first of all, they are great spiritual allies. Even if at the beginning we don't really understand and we don't really realize that they are a spiritual ally, they are. We think we are just using ingredients and parts of plants, but in fact, the spirit of that plant is coming over and cooperating with us in our spell work. And nobody is going to be suspicious of you because all of a sudden you want to have rosemary at home, okay? And maybe you also want some basil. I don't know, maybe you want roses. I really like roses. They are great allies in my opinion, so versatile. And you can start not only using parts of the plant in your spell work, but you can also start connecting with that plant through the second thing on my list, which is meditation. Work on meditation. Later on in your practice, when you start reaching out to spirits or deities, whatever you prefer, you will see how important meditation is. And by the way, if you want me to film a video about meditation, please let me know in the comments below, because I am planning on making a video about it, but it would be good to know if people are interested in seeing it, so let me know in the comments. Meditation, I see it as putting on Luna Lovegood's glasses, from Harry Potter, and when she's wearing those glasses, she gets to see stuff. Yeah, meditation is that, in my opinion. Meditation is the gateway that will take you to the spiritual realm. So it is very important that we work on meditation so we can understand and get to know our own energy, and then we start getting to know the energy of our personal spiritual team, ancestors, familiars, spirits that are our partners naturally and effortlessly. It is fundamental to know your energy, to know your thought pattern, like how you think, how your mind works, before we start trying to interact with other spirits, with entities in general. And on top of that, just like with plants, nobody will be suspicious if all of a sudden you want to meditate, because meditation is what? As old as walking forwards. People have always meditated since ages, millennia ago, since thousands of years. Nobody's going to find it weird if you become interested in meditation all of a sudden. They probably will think it's kind of nice.
Oh, that's good for you. You go meditate, yeah.
Another very good thing that you can do that will raise no suspicion at all is to go to something that I call power spots. Power spots are natural or built little places that have very particular and strong energies. For example, woods, forests, rivers, lakes, crossroads, mountains, parks. It is important for you to get to feel different energies of different places, especially when it comes to natural environments. It is so refreshing, to go meditate at the woods, to go meditate by the lake, by the river. It is so purifying, in my opinion. And also, like, most of the magic that you will be involved with is local. So you gotta know what is your local environment and what is available to you in your surroundings. The native plants, the native rocks and maybe minerals, maybe crystals, the water, maybe there's a specific water composition in your area because of some mineral of the land, and then you have a very specific and particular combination in the water that you could use in a certain way in your spell work. All of this requires getting to know your area very well and seeing what is available to you. Another power spot that I almost forgot to mention, of course, cemeteries and graveyards. That's like the witches' amusement park almost. It is nice to go, get to know your neighbors, get to know the people who used to live in your area, the heroes, the criminals, the children, the elders, the artists. What were these people about? Discover them. Except for cemeteries and graveyards, all the other power spots that I have mentioned, nobody is going to be suspicious of you because you want to hang out at the park by yourself. You can say, oh, I just need some me time, I'm gonna read. Nobody will find that weird. But if you are going to woods, mountains, or forests, I do recommend you have somebody to go with you. It can be a little bit dangerous to go by yourself. You never know. You might find some weird living person who could harm you. It could happen for real. When you are going to those more distant places, it's a good idea to have somebody to tag along, just for safety. But then it would be better if it is a like-minded person. Well, if not, see what you can do in your surroundings where it's safe for you to go alone, and take a look around and see what you can come up with as a power spot location. Those places are also great for little rituals, maybe at home you don't really have the space. Maybe there's too many people living with you and you don't have enough privacy or enough silence. You can just go to a lake, to a river, to the woods, to the park, and find a little quiet place that nobody is really passing through a lot, and you could do your workings there. Another thing that is very useful for the closeted witch are sigils. because sigils can be inbuilt with so much power, with so much intention, and like nobody's going to know what that is. If somebody asks, you can say, oh, it's just some drawing I came up with. It's just some design that came to my mind. Nobody will care, nobody will understand, and it's gonna be like that. Also, sigils are very easy to hide, so people don't necessarily need to come across your sigils. If you prefer, you can just hide them. You can tuck them in your phone case. You can tuck them behind a picture frame, behind a mirror, in your shoes. You can embroider sigils. So it's super discreet, it's super subtle, and most of the time other people won't even notice that. Another great thing is charging items. And you can charge literally anything with the intention that you have in mind. You can charge jewelry for protection, for power, for like personal power, for confidence, for victory, for success. You can charge things that you are going to eat or drink, like your meal, your food in general, your tea, your coffee. Something that I like to do when I make tea is to sprinkle some cinnamon on top of it, and as I stir, I put some intention into it. This is something that you can do in silence. Set that intention into your beverage, into your food, and nobody around you will realize. Nobody will notice. Another thing that is great and super subtle, super low-key is not magic. For example, I have a macrame thing up here that I have made some months ago for a specific intention. I also do a lot of embroidery, and for each stitch you can set an intention. And then whenever you are using that item, whenever you look at it, you will be reminded about that power that you have put in there. And that thing will be just vibrating that intention around you. And again, it's stuff that people will not notice. And in case you don't really have the means to go and start learning macrame, or you're not really interested in embroidery or any type of sewing for that matter, simply tying the lace of your shoes is an opportunity for not magic. So get creative. Another thing is essential oils. Essential oils, since some years, they are all over the place. They are super popular. You can find them at the supermarket near your house, depending on the country that you live in. Here in France, for example, they are super accessible and affordable. You can use essential oils to create your own mixtures, and you could start like low-key creating your own magical oils, which you could use later on to charge your items. But essential oils are so common and so popular nowadays that people will not find it suspicious if you have essential oils. Another classic are crystals. Crystals are super popular since a long time, and they are another thing that you can charge with energy if you want. But if not, I believe, this is my personal belief, that they already come from the earth with a very specific energy to them, and you can just like incorporate that into your practice. You don't need a whole bunch of crystals because that can get expensive, but you know, a few basics like clear quartz, selenite, amethyst, tourmaline, a little gem of each of those, and you already have a very solid crystal collection, very versatile as well. And again, crystals can be just decoration. They can be seen as just decoration by other people, and nobody will find it weird that you have crystals. Another thing that is amazing and can be very low-key is bath magic. I have a video here on the channel where I am talking about bath magic. It's gonna be linked up here and also in the description down below. But bath magic is very simple to make. You don't need to have a bathtub, so don't worry about that if you don't have one. But it's basically an herbal mixture that you are going to make to wash your body and bring a certain type of energy onto your body. And it is something very easy to do without others noticing. It will only require a little bit of organization, I would say. And if somebody sees you preparing that mixture, you can say, oh, I've heard that this mixture is very good for relieving stress in the body, so I am going to apply it on myself. Or you can organize yourself in a way that you will make your mixture in a time where nobody is at home, so you don't have to explain anything to anyone. Now, in this part of the video, we are going to talk a little bit about tips for new witches, for beginners in general, regardless if you are open about your practice or not. These tips are for the people who are just starting out. Maybe you will feel a little bit overwhelmed. I think that's very common at the beginning, but fret not. Take my hand and let's go. The first thing I would say is that you need to read everything you can. Read everything you can. Because books, magic and witchcraft books are, I would say, next to practice and experimentation, of course, books are a very important source of information. We can learn a lot from texts, from seeing what a magical practice looks like for other people from other places of the world and other time periods, other generations. It is very interesting to see the information being passed out through text. We can learn a lot for sure. And by the way, I have a free PDF that I link in the description of all my videos. It's the Beginner's Guide to Magic. You can just go down there and download it for free. There's a lot of very useful information for the beginner in that little PDF. It's something that I wish I could have found when I was starting out with my practice. And also, on top of that, in case you're not really sure what books you should get first, I have a video, 7 books for new witches, where I talk about 7 books that I think are fundamental for you to build your practice. So that video can also be very useful to you if you're not sure where you should start with your materials for reading. Another important thing for the beginner is to learn protection. At the beginning, we are so concerned about jumping right into the spells that we forget that protection is important. And I'm not trying to make anyone feel afraid or anything, but we can compare it to crossing the street. Crossing the street can be dangerous, right? If you don't do it properly, if you don't pay attention, if you don't follow certain guidelines, you could get in trouble by crossing the street at the wrong time. And the same applies to magic. It can be an amazing experience. It is super rewarding, It is really one of the most interesting things that I have ever encountered in my existence as a human being. But it also has a few dangers here and there. It's important to be prepared and to be protected from all possible directions. It's always better to be safe than sorry. And by the way, the best protection charm that you can use is to not be an asshole. If you are just nice, if you are just a lovely person, the chances of people hating your guts and wanting to curse you and hex you and turn your life into hell will be very low. So yeah, that's the first protection charm that everybody should learn, to be nice with others. But other than that, of course, go ahead and learn other protection methods, things that you could put in your house, things that you could wear, things that, extra bits of things here and there. Magic is like an onion with many layers. as the donkey in Shrek would say. Another thing that is a good idea to keep in mind is to go one step at a time. Like I have mentioned at the beginning, it can be a little bit overwhelming and there's just so much to learn and there are so many different paths and it's really a lot of information and we can get a little bit lost in the middle of all of this and we just want to learn everything at once. Calm down. You have your entire life for learning. I think that nowadays we are very much conditioned to wanting everything quick, everything on demand, everything ready for yesterday. But that's not how a magical practice works. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes trial and error. You're not gonna be super skilled at everything and it's gonna take time. And I'm not saying a few weeks, a few months, I'm talking years here. So calm down, just enjoy the ride. Don't worry too much about where you're gonna get, the finish line. Just enjoy the process and have fun experimenting. It's all about building abilities that they really layer on top of one another and they complement one another. Like before thinking about engaging in spirit work, you should definitely practice a lot of meditation. So it's one skill that gives support to the next one. Like I always say, you can't write an essay without knowing how to use letters. You can't be super excited to write an essay right away, but if you don't know how to use letters, that's gonna be so difficult and chances are you will not be able to do it. Take a step back and start from the beginning. Learn your meditation, get to know your crystals, get to know your plants, get to know how to protect yourself, and slowly start taking it from there. There's no reason to hurry. Yeah, you have all the time in the world. Another thing to keep in mind is to not be afraid to explore. I think that when it comes to the supernatural and the spiritual and everything beyond the veil, there's a lot of fear-mongering, of course, because that's what happens when you break society's taboo. Because people will always be afraid of things they don't understand, of things that they don't know, of things that they don't allow themselves to experience. At a certain point, especially when you start engaging with spirits, you will kind of feel like you are going crazy. Am I crazy? Yeah, you're gonna feel like that because you will start having experiences that the regular people and the regular society are not talking about because they are such subtle phenomena that the regular person doesn't notice them. No. And when you start noticing those things, you're gonna ask yourself all the time, am I going insane? You're not. You're just welcoming the spiritual into your life, and when you talk to it, it talks back. That's all. So don't be afraid. When I first started my path, especially when it comes to spirit work, because that was the last thing that I started doing, I was very scared because there's nothing in our lives that encourages us to engage with spirits. So anyway, I was very scared. I was afraid to do something wrong and mess up real bad and, have some kind of poltergeist in my house knocking things over. But nothing super weird or extreme has ever happened to me. Maximum is a very bad headache. Yeah, mistakes are part of the process and they are important. They are unavoidable and they are important because it is through mistakes that we learn. That's part of the whole thing. So don't be afraid, just go for it. Another thing that I want to mention is that at the beginning, we are way too concerned about labeling ourselves, about having a title. Of course, it is much easier for me to tell you that I am a folk practitioner because immediately you will understand what my practice is about rather than me telling you that I use wisdom passed down to me generation after generation and I use elements of the land and local spirit. No, that's too long. So if I tell you that I am a folk witch, a folk practitioner, you will immediately understand what my stuff is about. But at the very beginning, we don't really know what our practice will look like. We are still figuring things out. Your path will unfold to you naturally. You don't need to look for it. You don't need to force anything. That thing will happen effortlessly. It will just come naturally to you at the right time. This video is already gigantic, enormous, ginormous, but there's one last part of the video, a little bit of a discussion about grimoires and altars. And what is it that I want to say about that? I think it's important to mention grimoires and altars because that's where things have a tendency of becoming too aesthetic driven. And like I have mentioned previously, your practice is not about how it looks. Of course, we all love a pretty witchy room. We all love the decor. Yeah, it's nice, it's fun. It does help bring out the magic, but it's not about that. And sometimes when we are exposed to very aesthetic content, especially on the internet, we tend to believe that we need certain things when it's actually not the case. So don't start out spending tons of money on tools. I think that's a mistake that like 99% of practitioners make, but well, I'm gonna mention it anyway. Especially when it comes to expensive stuff, hold your horses and don't go out buying everything you see on Pinterest or on Instagram, okay? First, you need to get to know your own practice, the things you need, the things you do, and then you will have a solid understanding of what tools you actually need. And at the very beginning, to be honest, I don't think we need altars. Seriously, I don't think so. That's something to be thought about when you start bringing spirits into your practice. Altars, they are sacred spaces, okay? Of course, you can have a little space for you to cast your spells and perform your rituals, but that's not necessarily an altar. What I do recommend, and I do believe that you should have, is some kind of journal. And then we kind of touch on the grimoire area here. Why do you need a journal? You need a journal because you need to document your experiences. If a certain something happened, if you felt a certain way, if you heard something, you saw something, you tasted something, smelled something, write it down. When we are practicing our stuff, right there and then, there are certain things that happen that we don't really understand and that don't really make sense. But as time goes by and we look back at things, we look back at our notes in our journal, that thing that happened that day makes sense finally. So you need some kind of notebook, some kind of journal. I do recommend a binder because it's much easier to organize and rearrange stuff, move stuff around. But as a matter of fact, for a long time, I only had a digital version of my grimoire. And I am going to link in the description the Notion template of my grimoire, my digital grimoire. I think it's a very useful way of organizing your things online because like you can't have your physical grimoire on your person all the time. That's a very big object and kind of bulky. You can't have it on you all the time, but your phone is with you all the time. So having a digital version of your grimoire is very useful because if something happens when you are out and about exploring, you can write it down right away without waiting until you get home to do that. By the way, not sponsored, okay, I wish. But it's just that I use this platform a lot not only to organize my practice, but also to organize my content creation on YouTube. So Notion is a very good platform. If you don't know it, there's the website, there's the app, and for personal use, it's for free. Overall, I would say that, like, don't worry about how your practice looks, because it's not supposed to look in like any particular way, you know, it's not supposed to be Instagrammable. It's about the power and the energies that you are manipulating there. It's not about how it looks. It can happen by accident to look interesting and nice sometimes. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how it looks as far as it is effective. That's the point of magic. That's the point of your practice, is to be effective. And an altar can be very simple. It doesn't have to be a full-blown Tim Burton movie production on your altar, okay? It can just be a candle and a bowl of water. There you have it. As I always say, don't you ever underestimate the capabilities of a white candle and a bowl of water. Of course, if it makes you happy, you can add stuff, you know, trinkets, whatever. I'm just saying that it's not necessary. Let me know in the comments for how long you have been practicing witchcraft, if you are open about your practice, if you are in the closet, and how you deal with it. Let me know everything about what's going on in your practice in the comments below, because I love to get to know the people who are watching me. I hope that all of these tips can be useful to you, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, practice makes perfect. So let's get witching. Bye.